An important note: you cannot separate the practice of true Christianity from living a morally upright life. And so, if you are a Christian and you do not live a morally upright life, either your Christianity is fake or the religion you call Christian is not the Christian religion. Think about this seriously. Welcome through Conferences on the True Religion. I am your host, Father John Okelo. On this episode 7, we shall consider the trustworthiness of the authors. In the last episode, we saw that the Gospels were genuine books. Now, we shall consider those who are considered the writers. Are they to be trusted? Yes, they are to be trusted. How do we know? How can we prove this? You might ask. This proof is drawn from the witnesses of or contemporaries of posterity. It can also be drawn from both. It is evident that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John could have known the truth. How do we know this? Because they narrate facts, usually public facts, which were done before the eyes of thousands in the broad daylight and repeatedly, and facts which caused a tremendous upheaval in the Jewish and Roman worlds. To detail these facts, all the witnesses needed were eyes to see, ears to hear, memory to retain, and an instrument with which to write down what they saw, heard, and remembered. The writers wish to tell the truth. This is clear from the character of the narratives. The style is remarkably simple and free from rhetorical affectation. They speak honestly of their own humble condition in life, of their faults, their fears, their dull intelligence, the reprehension given them by Christ, of the treachery of one apostle, of the denial of the chief apostle, of the apparently disgraceful arrest, trial, and death of their leader, Christ. The same writer says St. John Chrysostom, who described the crucifixion and the scourging of Christ, tell us of his miracles. Why do you think them worthy of belief in the first case and unworthy of belief in the second? As if they related what did not take place, and if their motive in writing had been to glorify their master, they would have been silent about those things which are generally considered to be vile and ignominious. But they relate the vile details as truth. They picture them at length. They are careful and thorough in narrating all of them, omitting neither a small nor a large part, and yet they narrate only some signs and miracles and leave out a great part of them. Again, their veracity is evident from their agreement on the facts. Yet, they are practically independent of each other and with different purposes and audiences in view, thus excluding the possibility of a conspiracy to tell the same thing. Their veracity, their truthfulness that is again attested by the assurance with which they narrate the facts. Their enemies, the Jews, could very easily have proved the writers liars because the facts related were public, of great importance, and of the strangest character. Certainly the Jews knew whether these events had occurred or not, and it would have been the keenest weapon in their hands if they could prove that the writers lied, that they were simply imagining things. Such a demonstration would have been destructive of the hated Christian sect arising so dominantly among the Jews. Furthermore, by their writings, the evangelists converted multitudes. It's a very remarkable thing. How? The multitudes they converted were their contemporaries and the contemporaries of Christ who, because of their writings, believed in Christ. This belief was very difficult because it overthrew preconceived and universally accepted notions of the Messiahs. This belief also necessitated personal obligations of the strictest kind and the gravest danger. And it is impossible to offer any rational explanation of this belief unless we say that the evangelists wrote the truth and that their writings were accepted by their contemporaries who could have investigated matters on their own account, not only as the truth, but as well-known and incontestable truth. The early Christians did not assent to Christ's doctrines and miracles on any testimony which they themselves could have proved to be false. Again, there is no reason why the evangelists would lie. I'll tell you why. How would they benefit? There was no possibility of being rewarded with money, and no man lies for the sake of leading a life filled with toil, open to danger, continually menaced by the threat of a disgraceful death. Nor could the reason of the evangelists for writing have been vain glory. They did not write things which glorified themselves or their master, and if they desired glory, they could have bargained with the Jewish high priests and obtained fortune and position in return for the simple public statement that all what they said was false. Yet, even if they had wished, the evangelists could not have falsified the facts. Apart from the pertinent consideration that thousands of their contemporaries would have seen and heard the truth, it is absurd to say that such men as we know the writers to have been could even have imagined what they wrote. The Gospels contain a doctrine both speculative and practical, so sublime that no Plato or Socrates or Aristotle could have conceived it, much less the men who wrote the Gospels. Finally, it is another remarkable argument for the sincerity and veracity of the evangelists that diligent adversaries, after unremitting labors, undertaken oftentimes with a distinct prejudice at the outset to prove the gospel spurious and untrustworthy, have never been able to point out even the sign of a lie or a fraud or one error in these documents. If the writers wrote fiction, there is here an incredible coherence to which men have given a common and unshakable consent that lasted even to the death of the writers and for all the centuries after. We must believe the apostles and disciples of Christ or reject all history as untrustworthy. Finally, history tells us that the Christian religion, which is founded on the Gospels, changed the whole face of the earth by the truth, virtue, and holiness of its doctrines. Wheresoever it spread, men began to live morally good lives. An important note: you cannot separate the practice of true Christianity from living a morally upright life. And so, if you are a Christian and you do not live a morally upright life, either your Christianity is fake or the religion you call Christian is not the Christian religion. Think about this seriously. The religion, and if we dare to say that the Gospels are fictitious documents, we must admit that the highest development mankind has ever reached in truth, virtue, holiness, and culture is the effect of deliberate lying, cunningly planned deceit, and barefaced wickedness. From a bad tree, a good fruit cannot come, On the next episode, we shall discuss further on the veracity of the documents. May God bless you.